Welcome to Booklandia, where we review romance novels.
This and every episode are chock full of oversharing and spoilers. Every episode is rated E for explicit.
Hello.
Hello. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm Sky, and that's Ford, and we are gonna review a book. Today, we are talking about Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. And a fair warning to you all, we haven't recorded in a while, and we're a little creaky around the proverbial joints of this particular adventure. Oh my gosh, that metaphor wasn't even gonna come out properly. This is exactly what I mean. It's gonna be a bit of a thing. We're gonna get those joints glucosamine, and we're gonna work out really well.
Okay, great. Okay. Off to a thrilling start.
Hard agree. Okay. Wait, before we jump right in, how are you? Other than jointy.
You applied that metaphor to me, but I'm feeling rather jointy, ironically. So strange. How coincidental. I'm okay. We're both about to go on some trips for the summertime, and the living's easy. And so I should pack. I should think about packing. Haven't even thought about packing. Cool.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing all day, which is maybe why my brain is not quite here, because my brain is up there with the packing bits. I also have to say that I did not used to have travel anxiety at all. Like I used to just, like, my wanderlust is through the roof and I love traveling. But in the last 2-3 years, unsurprisingly, travel anxiety is like above head height. Totally swallowing me whole.
Did it get worse when you had children and needed to travel with your children? Like, or I guess when you went on your solo trip earlier in the summer for work, did you have the same amount of anxiety?
I absolutely did. I did. So there are completely different anxieties that entered my brain when children got added to the travel itinerary. But we adjusted to it. And there were some learning curves, and there were things that we did that we were like, cool, we're not doing that again, or cool, that was awesome and we're doing it again. But we traveled with both of them, and we absolutely wanted to be those parents that travel with their kids and feel comfortable doing so. So we made every effort to be so. So there are anxieties for traveling with children, and like, my mental load is huge in terms of, like, we need to pack this, and we need to make sure that this is when they eat, and we have to bring this thing or that thing, or when they arrive at a place, they're going to need this or that. So there's definitely a lot more to plan for, but that isn't really anxiety so much as just more preparations. My anxiety has everything to do with other people's lack of respect for me and my family, in terms of whether or not they wash their hands, whether or not they keep their mask on, whether or not they genuinely took a test before getting on the airplane, or if they were like, I feel fine, right? Like, those things that could negatively affect my family long term. That's what makes me spiral. And then I start, like, adding in, and if we catch something, then we have to stay where we are. And I've recently been hearing a lot of people who go on vacation and then are stuck on vacation because they have to quarantine. And it's just a bunch. And, like, I get it. I cannot be the only person who's feeling this right now. But, oi. just unloading some, like, awful adventures on you. I'm sorry.
I do not share, like, obviously the COVID thing is a thing, right? And that is a normal amount of stress and anxiety. Like, going into the grocery store has the same amount of stress for me as, like, being on an airplane. But I think I probably used to have some travel anxiety, and then I did, like, 5 tours where all I did was sit on an airplane. And that and lived out of a hotel room and all. So like that really sort of tamped down a lot of that. But over the summer, so my summer schedule is different than my fall spring now that I work in education. So over the summer, I've been taking the bus to work. And that first week of taking the bus was really anxious ridden for me because I'm like, am I at the right bus stop? Where's the bus? It's 2 minutes late. What am I gonna, I can't miss my stop. What if I miss my stop? And like, it took a solid week or two for me to sort of relax more. I don't know. So there, travel is just fear of the unknown.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. That is what anxiety is, right? Is fear of the unknown.
Right.
If
Yeah.
you really boil
Right.
it down. So yeah. So my anxiety, like in terms of whether or not I'm at the right bus stop or whether or not I'm gonna make my airplane, like those are the things that I can control. And this feels like an uncontrollable thing, and that is what's causing the like live anxiety that's traveling like a loose electron through my body, just like pinging about. A physics metaphor, you guys.
Wow. I can't remember if it's this book that we're about to talk about or the other book I read this week, but one of them had a quote that was basically to the effect of fear is fear because it only lives inside your mind. Like everything that you fear is something you've created in your head.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Fully agree with that quote.
Yeah.
Fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fear is entirely, I mean, there are parts of fear that have an external component. You know, if you're not a spider person and you see a spider, then there's an external component to it. But your brain your brain is the one
that spider is going to attack me and turn me into Spider-Man, and I don't want to be a superhero. How dare.
that is clearly why people that is why people are afraid of spiders, of course.
That's what I thought. That's
excellent.
Exactly what I thought. It's not about their creepy hairy legs or anything like that.
Adorable hairy legs.
I mean, as someone who has hairy legs, I resemble that remark.
As someone who got bit by a spider yesterday, I still say their legs are adorable. And they're great for the ecosystem, and they I'm a fan. Anyways, if you don't like spiders, I'm your person to sort that out for you. I heart. I don't keep them. I like release them into the wild.
Yeah. As long as they don't scare me, I will, and there's no one else who is more adept at catching said spider, I will do the spider reacclimation to the outside.
Perfect. I feel like that is a great place to segue to the outdoors, if that's okay by you.
Because that is absolutely what this book is about. So let's try and have a not weird segue.
Great. So we're talking about Christina Lauren's Something Wilder, which is their novel about the outdoors, basically. Here's the cover. The cover does not share that sentiment with the world. It has a giant yellow heart on a very big blue sky with some flat-ish red mountains below.
So I would also add that this yellow heart is a sun rising or setting behind these mountains.
Yeah, fair. Looking at that cover, I would have zero idea what the book is about. And whether or not Something Wilder refers to spicy sex scenes or the outdoors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like, is this the moment where it's like that that joke that all people would have to do, all Marvel would have to do is put the Marvel logo and a date on their movie posters, and they would still have sold out screenings on that date, and no one would need to know what the movie is about? Like, is that what this book cover is, where you just put Christina Lauren and
I mean,
you don't need any other information?
I genuinely think that might be the case, because
their name takes up a third of the book cover.
It absolutely does. And in the like before the release of this book, very little other than the title was given, and we'll get into it a little bit later. But my experience of this book was I was like, what is it about even? For probably the first third of the book, if not the first half of the book, because it really isn't made clear. And I was literally only reading it because I was like, well, I trust them, so let's keep reading.
Right.
Yeah. Do you? I wrote this. I'm very proud. I'm very proud of this, which means you're gonna find like 12 grammatical errors.
I pre-read it, and there's some bumpy bits, but nothing grammatical. So lots of maybe some tongue twisters as well, but I will read it. But if you're proud and you want to read it, you can also read it.
No, okay, I definitely tongue twisted for your sake.
I thought you loved me. I thought this was a love relationship. Okay, well, let's do this then.
All right, so I'm gonna count you down from 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
3, 2, 1.
Leo is going on an adventure planned by his pals, not knowing that he's about to be stuck in a canyon with the one that got away. While Leo and Lily catch furtive glances and rain-drenched makeout sessions, something nefarious is going on around them. As the plot thickens, not only do they have to face the feelinging they have for each other, you wrote that, but also the mystery of her father's past, where with their lives on the line, could they solve the riddles, get the treasure, and keep the love of their lives?
Oh yeah, the love of their, yeah, I see how there's a little bit of a boo in there, but feelingings
with their feelingings. It's also with their lives on the line, blah blah blah, keep the love of their lives.
That's the bad one. That's the bad one. Yeah.
It's not, it's fine. It's just rude.
Well, you did very well. Feelings. I spell checked, which is the greatest part. I spell checked.
It's all right. This was actually really well, like very good surmising. Well done.
Well, thank you. So immediately jumping into my question though, so the first third, maybe even the first half of the book is like there is this group of men who go on this outdoor adventure, and Lily and her friend happen to be the guides on this go on an adventure in the wilderness thing that the men sign up for, and then we find out
to clarify that a little bit. It's they provide a service that is gently guided treasure hunting, Butch Cassidy treasure hunting,
right? And then it, by sheer coincidence, Leo, who is one of the men in the treasure hunting party, and Lily, one of the guides, happen to have previous history. And they are both still carrying a torch for the other one. The first third of the book is literally, this is how you set up a camp, look at each other longingly, remember some stuff. This is how you fry some bacon in the morning, look at each other longingly, talk in raspy morning voices, and recall raspy morning voices. It took forever. And I was like, what the hell is this book about? It is dragging. It was so slow. It was like we were not really learning about any of the other characters. And I understand that the point of that was to build up the suspense for when it turns. But it just felt like the pace to me felt so slow. And then it turns. The middle section happens, and then the back end of the book is like there was a clock and we're racing to the end because it went 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
Yeah, I think this book suffered a bit of the fact that Christina Lauren wrote an action romance, and that it's a different structure, or it needs to be a different structure than a regular set in a city romance. There's so much external conflict that is happening. I think they did a really good job balancing the external and the internal conflict. But you're very right in that the first third, like the inciting incident of the book is that turning moment. And I guess, like, spoiler alerts, people, one of the group members dies. He's an asshole, but he dies. And that we'll get to my question about that in a minute. But that was the inciting incident, and it's like 100 pages in.
Yeah, it takes forever. And up until that moment, you're just like, he's just a dickhead, and someone's gonna like spike his punch with some laxatives, and that's gonna be the whole thing. And then and then he dies, and you're like, oh well, shit, okay, sure. And I like an action romance. We've read some suspense romance, and we've talked about that. But yeah, that first, like, it was like molasses. It was crazy.
I would argue that even an action romance is different than a suspense romance. Because a suspense romance, you have to build tension, whereas an action romance is about clues and pacing, right? Or at least it's this one.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely, yes.
So, like, I think back to Ginny Elder Moak's first book, which is, you know, treasure hunting in its own regard. Or if you think about, and I really hate to even conjure this name, Dan Brown. Like,
I was just thinking this is the Da Vinci Code example. This is exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I don't want to say Dan Brown, but I do want to say Dan Brown. And the only caveat I will put on Dan Brown, I've like my opinion, not of his writing maybe, but of his stories got elevated this last week. I watched an interview with Tom Hanks. This, by the way, is a swerve. Hang on. So I watched an interview with Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks said that the director who does all of the Dan Brown books with him is a lovely human, and they have an amazing relationship, and they're just so much fun to make that Tom Hanks hopes that those books never stop being published because he wants to keep being that character for as long as he can because he just has such a great time filming them. And I was like, okay, well, in that case, I guess plus 1 point to Dan Brown for giving the platform for Tom Hanks to do a fun thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like, happy people should keep doing happy things. Like, give Tom Hanks the world, he deserves it.
Exactly. Yeah. So swerve back to this book, but yes, absolutely. The pacing, it should be similar. But my point is that the first third of the book did not feel like that pacing existed for me.
Right.
And then it got paced better.
Right. So here is my counter argument. And my counter argument is if the inciting, what I determine as the inciting incident is Terry. So Terry is the douchebag, like, hanger on of this party. He pulls a gun on everybody to steal Lily's father's notebook so that he can find this treasure that he is sure that Lily's father found. And Lily's father is like a renowned treasure hunter. So he steals this thing from her, pulls a gun on everybody, holds Lily's friend hostage. Do you remember her name? Nicole?
I definitely said Nicole is her name. I definitely said Lily's friend earlier because my brain was moving really fast.
Right. So holds Nicole with the gun to her head, like, does shitty things. And then there's a scuffle and he falls off a cliff to his death. If I was supposed to care about that, if I was supposed to be like, oh, good riddance, thank God, then we needed him to be more of a douchebag in all of that setup. And if I was not supposed to care about that, great job, I guess. So basically, if that first act was so padded in order to set up an emotional reaction for his death, it womp-womped. Same.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Right? I was like, this is an unusual turn, but I was more thinking in terms of the plot line and less in terms of an emotional response.
Yeah. Do you mind if I jump to my question about this?
I don't mind. No, jump around that makes sense.
Great. So Terry, I think we could assume that he might be a Trump supporter. And he's definitely a misogynist. And he talks down to the women, calling them like little ladies, and like, I know more about slot canyons than you do, and I live in New York City. Like, he's one of those bros, like negative bro, like a bro dude in a bad way. And like, he wears too many cargo pockets. What were his other faults? Help me remember.
Didn't listen to instructions, and he peed on someone's tent, which was childish, but
And so when he died and fell into a canyon, they left him there.
Well,
he was such a horrible person that they left him in the canyon to go find treasure.
They leave him in a canyon because they think that it would be too treacherous to go down into that canyon to retrieve the body, and they need the authorities with the equipment to come get him. And at the end of the book, they do tell you that they get his body out of the canyon, so they don't just abandon him forever, just for a while.
To go get this, here's the thing. They were like 3 days into the journey when this happens. So 3 days out, you go get the thing, like you talk to the police, it was an accident, like they come up with the story that it was an accident and he wandered off. And then when all that shit settles down, then you go find your fucking treasure. I guess, would you have left him in the canyon to go immediately find treasure? Or would you have left and gone for your treasure later?
Well, I think the point is supposed to be that they go on to the next town, right? And that is when they get chased out of that town with guns.
But they weren't going to that town with the intention of alerting the authorities. They went to that town to get the four-wheeler, to get the Jeep so that they could go to where they think the treasure was.
Go forward. Yeah, I mean, they talk about it, but they definitely are way too casual about, like, a person that some of them have known for a long time have died. Yeah, that's super cash. It's super cash, like, oops, dead person.
And there were 2 sat phones in this whole thing. They could have called. Like,
they had no service.
Oh my god. I'm sorry, I'm making a face. I'm just gonna make a face at that comment because they find service. You go, like, so in Dungeons and Dragons, you and other things, I guess, you determine if there's a whole scale of things. Is your character lawful good, lawful neutral, chaotic, like there's this whole scale of things. And I'm like, well, this moment has made me realize that I, as a person, am probably pretty lawful good.
I would agree.
Because I would go back to the authorities and deal with this dead body before going to find, what was it, like $15 million? If it hadn't been found now, it wasn't going to be found in the next month.
And, like, at some point, they do get pressed for time. Like, someone does put a literal gun to their head to get them pressed for time, but not quite yet. And I'm sorry to tell you that I am definitely not lawful good.
You would go get the money.
At best, I'm chaotic good, and that's on a good day.
Yes, no. Yeah, no, we know. I know this about you. So are you saying that you would have done what they did?
Yes, most likely, yes.
Cool. So, and when the authorities did retrieve the body and they're like, oh, he was partially eaten by coyotes, how would you feel?
Whoops. Also, in a nihilist sort of way, you have to remember, right? Like, nihilism does not care about what the remains look like after the fact. My opinion on that would be then there's a not so starving coyote out there, which means that the ecosystem was upheld.
Okay. All right. Okay. I just felt like he wasn't a horrible enough human for them to treat his body that way.
I agree. It did seem really callous for all of them to be like, whoops-a-dead. Whoops-a-dead.
Yeah.
Agree.
Let's go find some money. Okay. All right. This book also makes the assertion that Utah, where it's set, is in the American Southwest. Now, I won't argue with you. It's definitely in the Americas. And
it's definitely in the West. It's the American West.
I will also agree. Well, I will put out as evidence that I'm from Texas, and people from Texas have ideas about what's the South.
Mm-hmm.
Texans think that they're in the South, and everyone else in the South doesn't think we're in the South.
True story.
But we're also a little bit of the Southwest. But really, in my mind, the Southwest is New Mexico and Arizona, and that's it.
Yeah, I would agree here. So, I mean, it is literally called the Wild Wild West, and that actually geographically refers to Utah and Colorado. So
Mhm.
it is the West, but it is not the Southwest. It is not far enough
Yeah.
south. It's like the Central
I
West.
I think of Utah as being it's a mountain state to
It
me.
is a mountain. Yeah, I mean, it is.
Right? And, like, I actually had to pull up a map, and Utah wasn't where I thought it was, but it's still half Rocky Mountains, and then half of, like, whatever Arizona, New Mexico is. So,
Yes, and
like
it's like one of these and then a diagonal at the bottom. Yeah.
yeah, and, like so, I took offense to the fact that they called it the American Southwest, and
It is
that
weird. I do
probably
agree.
set the book on a bad note for me from the start.
I do agree. I would have skipped over to your question about horseback riding, because it ties
Okay,
in with the Southwest or the South or the
okay.
West or whichever.
Okay, great. We're just gonna hit all my questions to start. That's fun. On this in this book, the outing they have to ride horses into these canyons to do these treasure hunts, and that is their mode of transportation. So it's like Western light, and I think because the female characters were the pokes, so to speak. I'm gonna just quotate that all over the place. That it made it an acceptable amount of cowboy for me because cowboy is one of my triggers. I cannot find a cowboy sexy because my father is a cowboy, and like I just can't do it. I'm too close to the source material, one could say. It's a lived experience. Um, but I knew because I had grown up around that, I also knew stuff, but it was kind of clear that they didn't know stuff because they didn't dive into anything in detail.
Right.
Um, as someone who was raised in Colorado, which is also considered the American Southwest,
Just the West.
what's your
There's no
horse
South.
experience?
Firstly, there's no South. Secondly, raised as I lived there for a bit. I wasn't really raised there.
Right, sure.
I have been on horseback, and I have been on horseback in the mountains. I did this amazing thing where a horse, like we did, a horse took me up a mountain, and these were horses specifically trained to go up and down mountains, and it was so impressive. So like we had to learn how to like lean back in the saddle or lean forward in the saddle to help distribute the weight. It was amazing. I like the biggest thing I took away from that is that horses are freaking awesome and we do not deserve them as creatures. So I'm very excited for my little one to be tall enough to ride. And I know that they can ride when they're much younger, but like I want the experience to go well in the first place. And I also am pretty sure that my little one isn't interested in breaking any limbs because they have other priorities in their lives. But anyway, so I have ridden. I'm not avid. I definitely know how to get into a saddle and get out of a saddle. But I would absolutely be sore if I were to have to ride for like 7 days.
Yes. So the last time my mom came to visit, she as a child, she was in horse riding competitions, jumping and some dressage and stuff, which for those of you who don't know, dressage is horse dancing.
It's very pretty horse dancing.
Dance.
Yes.
It's so pretty. And so when she came out, I took her horseback riding around Griffith Park. You can do like a 1 hour or a 3 hour tour. So we did a 3 hour tour because I knew one was not going to be enough for her. And it's the first time she had been back in the saddle in over a decade. Probably same for me. I think I rode the last time at my high school graduation or after my high school graduation. So
I was going to ask how your high school graduation included riding, but please continue.
No. I went to visit my dad, I think right before my high school graduation.
Okay, that makes
probably
sense.
The last time I rode. Because I brought my city friend with me and we had to get her on a horse, not in a horse. That's very Tauntaun-esque. And after 3 hours, I really hurt. I forgot. I think I was not as aware of my lady bits as I had been on that ride. I was like, oh my God, where do I put my do I lean too forward or do I lean, like everything hurt after 3 hours. So 7 days of horseback riding is crazy. That's a lot. It's a lot.
And they just jump right into it. There's no prep, there's no stretch, there's nothing. It's just like, off you go. You'll just be bow-legged for a while. It's fine.
Right. And they talk about like the groaning aches of the mornings and stuff like that. But like, yeah. Okay. So a little bit of horse experience. Great. Excellent. You do you know to keep your heels down and watch between the ears of the horse and all that?
Yes.
Great. Yeah. Experienced horse riders we are. Excellent.
Well, not at all. Not at all. I've always had a guide. Like I'm not like I could not take a horse out on my own. But yeah. Also, this just occurred to me that we could have this experience together. There is horse riding trails near me. Or Griffith. That's fine too. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah, there's stuff around me.
I've never done any like horse riding on a beach. That could be fun. I don't know if they actually do that anymore, but that could be fun. And yeah, because up near me, there's all these horse ranches, so they're everywhere.
That's an off. We should take this off world.
Yeah. You know what, folks? Go ride a horse.
And spare a cowboy. Wait, what's the song?
It's spare a horse, ride a cowboy. Don't think of these things. I don't want to remember that I know these things.
I'm just glad I remembered the actual lyric and then inverted it correctly. Okay, can we talk about the emotional depth of this book? Because that's where my questions are. And actually the fact that we squished your questions together is going to make my 2 questions squish together really nicely. So here's where we get off the horse and into the nitty gritty. Hey, look at that. I made a thing.
Oh, all right.
I hope someone sends hearts at this particular moment just for that. So here's what I'm talking about. For me, the book felt a little bit incomplete. It's like our characters. Firstly, I didn't feel like I actually emotionally understood either one of these main characters at all. And then the end of the book did not feel like we unpacked those characters well enough, or we had enough internal dialogue with those characters enough for me to be like Leo abandons his entire life again to join Lily again on literally the very same farm. So the original, the previous history of the 2 of them is that Leo abandons his city slicker life to stay on this farm with Lily because it's her dream. And then something happens in his life and he has to change course and leave Lily and the farm. The end of the book is literally the mirror image of the beginning of the book, where he abandons his city slicker life to join her on the farm and just follow her dreams. And there is 2 sentences maybe to validate that he has made this choice actively and not passively, but it just felt so tepid, so treading water, that I actually felt unsatisfied by knowing that he's found his happily ever after. But I genuinely don't even know if she has, because I'm not sure I don't know that I knew enough about her to unpack her baggage enough to be like, she has then like found a happy place. Though I do feel like I know more about Lily's past and Lily's baggage than I do about Leo's. It's like there's a little bit in the very beginning about him and like 2 sentences at the very end, and mostly he just stares at her like a puppy dog. Thoughts?
Great. I was like, where's the question? I see where you're coming from, and I slightly agree. I think Lily, so the farm in the beginning when they first are teenagers and whatever, like that is Lily's farm. She's going to have it, like that's her inheritance, right? And then her father sells it, and she's afloat, adrift for a while. And when they find Butch Cassidy's gold, spoiler alert, they buy the ranch back. And her desires never changed. She always wanted that ranch back. She wanted to do everything she could to get that ranch back. So that wasn't really an arc Like,
Nope.
she just made the shit happen for herself. And then, yeah, I felt like Leo did consent to this life change. He talks about how he could, now that his little sister that he was taking care of was going to college and was more independent, and he could make this choice that made him happy instead of living in New York in this job that made him money. But there was conversations of like, where he was like, what am I gonna do in the small town Utah? I'm a mathematician and a statistician. Like, I don't, what am I doing here? And yeah, he followed her. He followed her there, essentially. So, kind of a bummer. Kind of a bummer.
Kind of a
Yeah.
bummer.
I think again, this is where the structure of the book affected the story.
I mean, yeah, there was like, we found the gold. It was great. All of that. That culmination was also like the last, maybe it's because I was reading it late at night trying to finish it, but it felt really like streamlined and kind of rushed. And then all of a sudden they're like in their farmhouse doing their thing, and he's just the happiest he's ever been. And I was like, but like 19-year-old Leo is happy. What about 30-something-year-old Leo, who is a fully grown adult with probably new... It felt like they were both stuck in their, like, in the things that they wanted when they were younger. And we didn't really hear the things that they needed when they were older. And one of the things that's really appealing about second chance romances for me is the exploration of how people have matured and changed. And that I did not like, right? She always wanted the farm, and she, like, 10 years on or 15 years on, she still just wants the farm.
It's a ranch. I'm so sorry to correct you. It's a ranch.
That's
they do
fine.
Not grow things.
Oh,
except
fair.
Animals.
Fair. Okay. So it's fair. No idea. Thank you for the correction. Okay. I genuinely had no idea that there was a difference. So a ranch, not a farm. Got it.
Yeah. Just when you find yourself talking to cowboys.
In all of those very frequent instances of me chatting with cowboys.
Look, you're about to travel to Colorado, which is in the American Southwest. Quote unquote.
Nope.
Hard no. What could happen? So I find your desire in a second chance romance really interesting, because what I liked about this one is that they came together and accepted their love for each other very quickly and very easily, which allowed for that back half of the book to be about the external drama rather than their relationship. And there's a little like, will they, won't they throughout, but they were pretty solidly locked in. I mean, at least he was. So, I really liked that about this second chance romance. So that's my thought. I'm sticking to it.
All right. Well, on that thought, we're going to take a break.
All right, great. I'm going to get another beer.
Sounds good. We're going to take an intermission. When we come back, we will discuss our favorite moments from the book and if this book made us want to get naked. Sorry, I literally watched you run back in and be like, do I interrupt this run? It's a delicious looking run.
It was very great, and my headphones never went out of range all the way to the beer fridge and back. So,
well, now you
small
know.
Victories.
Small victories indeed. Okay, we are back, and we are talking about Christina Lauren Something Wilder. And we're going to talk about our favorite moments. We're going to talk about our hot takes and whether or not we got naked after or during reading this book. So let's start with your Okay, I'm gonna do my favorite moment because it's really small,
Great.
but it is really fun.
Great.
And then I'll hand it off to your much more meaningful one.
Okay.
So in the book, we learn a tiny little tidbit of history about Telluride, a place that I have been before and did not know this about. So I love that this was part of it. So apparently, the name of this town, Telluride, came from historical cowboys saying, "To hell you ride," because when you got to Telluride, you basically did all of the things you would do in hell, apparently, which included like brothels and gambling. So, you know, a very mild hell. There was very little like punishment and burning unless you asked for it nicely. So Telluride is to hell you ride, and I love it.
I would have to again look at a map, but I wonder how far Telluride is from another major 19th century town, like a town that existed in the 19th century that served as a hub for ranching and
One
cattle herding
horse's
and cowboys
ride. Like however long a horse can ride before a horse cannot ride anymore.
That's not a unit of measurement. Great though. like ride it like it's dying as you ride into town, because that's a few days.
Right.
But like
exactly.
If a horse can run for, hours. So I don't know. Because so what that makes me think of, it's sort of this den of sin as a town in the 19th century, which makes me think that there isn't a lot of those in the
there are not.
region.
They are still not,
So,
even when you have a car. I have gotten stuck in the pass. There's a pass in the mountains. It's only 2-lane, and if it snows, you are effed for hours. Truly.
Hot. Tell me more.
No.
I'm just kidding. Don't actually tell. Okay, great. Okay, cool.
I did not mean it that way. I meant you get stuck in your car, there's snow, you can't drive anywhere, all the hotels are super expensive and booked. I slept between pews in a church. There's a whole story there.
Yes, there is. Okay. I knew what you meant, and then I made it dirty, and now I'm interested in this story for another time. My compelling moment isn't so much a moment, but this book it made me wish for one more moment with my grandma. And so Lily is following her father's journal and these clues that he left her to find the money, to find the gold that he found, so that she could have it and live her life. And he had planned that they were going to do it together, and they didn't, because he had a stroke and eventually passed away. And it just made me long for one more something with her, with this person that I love, who I connected deeply with, who I shared these adventures and these outings and these same tastes with. Someone she formed me, I think, a lot as a person. So how dare you? Good job. I'm not gonna cry. It's gonna be fine. I thought I might cry. I'm holding it in.
I think it's really lovely. I had a really close relationship with my grandma. I'm glad you found a thing that you would have shared with her and that made you think of her.
Yeah, I think I would have. I think I might have recommended this book to her. She grew up in New Mexico. She knew about Westerns and history, and she loved reading and art and all that. So I think she would have liked this book. It wasn't too steamy for her.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a good recommend to your grandmas.
And that leads us to our
sorry, that's the wrong accent.
That wasn't
the wrong accent.
That was very New York of you. Yeah, do something new.
Yeah. Well, it's we're talking about the South, so we got to do the Southern accent, right? Right. All right. So my hot take on this book is that Christina Lauren has gotten into this habit where they don't really describe their characters very well. And I just want like 20% more description. Like, I just want to know, like, he's like half American, half Japanese. I want a little bit more of that good description. Like, what, like, how soft is his hair? Tell me about it, girl. Like, I wanted to be able to picture these characters, and I wasn't able to.
Okay, A plus on keeping that accent throughout. Well done, you. Also hard same. I forgot he was biracial. I full tilt forgot he was biracial. I know it's mentioned very early on, and that's about it. She's blonde. She's dirty blonde with messy braid is all I remember.
Braids. Yep.
So yeah, my hot take is it's a fun summer read, and it's a softer, spicy read. So for those people who are not willing to read a very explicit sex scene, this is great. For those people interested in an explicit sex scene, you're gonna get blue-balled by this one. I also, yeah. So, you know, if someone's like, I don't know, I don't love romance, but I want an action-packed adventure for the summertime, heck yeah, this is it. I said heck yeah on purpose, because usually that is not a thing I say. But yeah, that's my take on it.
I would comp this book as Crocodile Dundee / Romancing the Stone.
Yeah, that's a good one. Those are both really cute and lovely.
Yeah.
And like really fluffy. Like the stakes are seemingly really high, but ultimately everything turns out okay.
Not so much.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. All right. You know what? Go watch Lost City. It's an excellent action romance.
True story. True story. Truly wonderful. That shout out is to Lost City, not to Something Wilder. It's a weird episode, you guys. Okay, what is your did you get naked hot take?
No. As recently previously mentioned, not so steamy, and like the sex scenes were described in a very like poetic and flourishy way, and I'm not about that life. I want the sounds of thrusting described in black and white on the page, please and thank you.
True story. So it's
no.
Yeah, it's also a no, I did not get naked reading this book for me as well. The other thing about this book is, so their one and only fully described sex scene happens in a sleeping bag. This is the second time that in a one-person sleeping bag. This is the second time that Christina Lauren wrote a one-person sleeping bag sex scene, and for the second time, the other one is in a holidays, and for the second time, I ask, have you attempted this? Because your blocking does not make sense. There is zero opportunity for what you described to happen IRL unless they're both really short and there are some air holes in your sleeping bag.
Yeah, you can't spread your legs that wide in a one-person.
Nope, not at all. You can't. Also, you get sweaty really fast. It's super uncomfortable. It's just the whole point of a sleeping bag is to keep heat in. It would be chafy. It would be chafy, swampy, and chafy.
Swampy. Yeah, it's not great.
just hard no, right? Like just hard no on all of that. So do not recommend at all. No.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Like, get one people's person sleeping bags and zip them together, and then have a great time.
Sure, or use it as either the sheet or the blanket, but like don't zip yourselves into it. Exactly. Yeah. So shenanigans, and please draw me a diagram is all I gotta say there.
Brilliant. Yes. I feel like that is a really niche market no one's like tuned into yet, is drawing diagrams of sex scenes from romance novels. Because I think a really hilarious cartoonist could have a great time.
Agree. If anyone out there is that person, please and thank you. We would, in fact, buy the book.
Yes.
So yeah.
Give me your coffee table sex scene book. I would, actually. Yeah. Okay.
Right? It would be, and then you have to like guess, or at least like you look at it and then you like figure out which book it was from. Absolutely. It would be very niche, but we would be there. The Romanceagram and the romance TikTok community, 100% there for you.
You've got at least 2 confirmed book sales right here.
True story. Yeah, so that is really my take. I have to say, so recent Christina Lauren, so there was like phenomenal Christina Lauren stuff that was much harder and much spicier. So if you're starting like a backlog read of Christina Lauren, know that the earlier Christina Lauren stuff is very sex forward and it's great, but you have to be warned that that's what you're getting into. And then there's like an era of Christina Lauren that's really cute, but is still very explicitly sexual. And now we're sort of in the softer women's fiction version of Christina Lauren, which I don't love as much because I don't need it to be softer. But I appreciate that this opens them up to a larger audience of people. So yay on that. I like that they went out of their comfort zone on this. So yay for that as well.
I liked the attempt at the action romance.
Yeah,
because they are the pinnacle of contemporary fiction right now, right? They're the top of every list. They have a really huge backlog of books. And if this is their first attempt and they continue to write adventure romance, they're gonna nail it.
True story.
This was just the practice run.
Right. So in case Christina Lauren's anybody is listening, which is foolish to assume, but still, someone tell them that we want more of this, but more. But again,
yes, absolutely. I want the Lost City romance novel. I'm still striving for it. Absolutely. Oh my God! Someone drop a bowling ball in your house?
I have stories about that as well. The answer is probably yes. I'm sorry about the very loud noise that happened to our heads just now. These are the upsides and downsides of recording in one's basement.
Truth. We have a couple more minutes. Are you reading anything? Do you want to tell the people what you're reading next?
So
or what our next episodes are going to be.
I was going to say, so it's actually both. So I just finished Wicked Beauty by Katie Robert. Please come back for that episode. We're definitely doing an episode on that. It's about a triad, kind of my favorite hot thing to talk about. About that. Spoiler alert, I did get naked.
Yes! So sorry, I got distracted. Finn was at the window. He was telling me that the window's been open this whole time. So... great job.
Well done, you.
He has to deal with it in the edit. That's his problem. That's future Finn's problem.
Right, future Finn's problem. So I just finished Wicked Beauty, and so fucking steamy. Hell yes.
Yay.
We'll talk about that in the next episode. Do come back for that. Great. And then Wicked and the Wallflower is my next by Sarah McLean. And then so I was shout out to Powell's Books in Portland. I went there. I bought the second in that series, so then I had to buy the first in that series, and I bought it for my Kindle immediately, which I immediately forgot. And then I went and I bought the actual paper version of it. So, and then I opened my Kindle and I was like, oh, it's already here, duh. So I might have to return the paper version because I really don't need it twice. Or there. Or I'll hand it off to you. So I have the paper version and the not paper version, and I have the paper version of the second one because, again, Powell's hooked me up with that. And then after that, maybe Persuasion, because the Persuasion movie is coming out, and I love Persuasion, so I might reread before the movie. Those are all of mine. What are you doing?
So literally like an hour before we started recording, I finished the second Bare Knuckle Bastards Sarah McLean book, Brazen and the Beast.
That's the one I bought at Powell's.
At Powell's. Better than the first. Like, it's good. The sex scenes are steamier. we're gonna do an episode about Wicked and Wallflower, so I will probably bring it up then.
Okay.
Yes, there's lots to be said. I enjoyed it. She is my favorite period romance writer right now because she's doing it with a feminist lens, and I cannot get enough. And she's weaving her series together. So, like, in this one, we have a scene with Cecily, who is the character from Bombshell.
Yes.
And there's also a scene where they're talking about a Scotsman and his wife and how deeply they're in love and all this. And she has a previous series that's about us, and one of the books is about a Scotsman. And I'm like, oh, she has all these sort of like pocket series, but they're all in the same world, and they're all kind of tied together because society, everybody knows everybody in English society of the early 19th century. I'm low-key becoming obsessed with her.
All right. Well, the new book in the Bombshell portion of the series is coming out soon.
Yes.
Super excited about that. Also, sorry, this just became a Sarah McLean podcast for a hot second. Sorry about that.
Fine.
We're really not sorry at all.
No apologies.
But do come back. So that's going to be 2 episodes from now. Do come back for that as well. Mm-hmm. By then, I maybe finish Wicked and the Wallflower and the one after, and Brazen... Bare Knuckles and Brazen, Brazen and the Beast.
Brazen and the Beast, yes.
And Bare Knuckles is the whole series title.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bare Knuckle Bastards.
There we go. So those are all the things. Also, yeah. I'm sorry, that sentence went nowhere. I'm going to blame the wine.
Excellent. I'm a cider and a half in, so let chaos reign, everybody. Go ride a horse.
And a cowboy. Not at the same time.
No, not at
Draw a diagram of how it happens in a single person sleeping bag.
I would read that sex scene, though. How to ride a cowboy while on a horse.
Oh.
Hot! I'm here for it.
All right. And on that note, that is the note. We're ending on that. Bye, everybody.
Yes,
thank you for joining us for an episode of Booklandia.
For more Booklandia, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at l.skyford, Twitter at skyfordl, and hit up our blog, lskyford.com.
We love you to the moon and back, so don't forget to rate and subscribe.
Our eternal thanks for the audio editing and support provided by Finnegan Murphy, who you can find on Twitter at Finnegan1, that's FIONNEGAN, numeral 1, and sometimes Sky herself.